I'd like to ask you, you're doing remittances. We're here to talk about merchant adoption. Do you somehow find a way how to incentivize those receiving parties in the remittances to keep bitcoins instead of just receiving pesos, and then try to spend them locally and try to integrate it with the merchant ecosystem?
Well, right now with Rebit, we pay out in pesos.
Yeah.
But like you said, the thing in the Philippines is that we're almost at the poverty line right now, and the drop in price, like just yesterday, it was $10 more expensive, and that $10 really affects a lot of people in the Philippines. I mean, that can feed like a whole family for like a week already. So, in terms of convincing them to use,
I'm afraid it gets down to what I mentioned, that it's really the wealthy people who don't care that much about volatility who will be the real early adopters. Oscar, Indonesia is a similar case. There's widespread, let's call it poverty, and then there's very narrow, middle class and wealthy class. Where do you see your customers?
Okay, it's true. Philippines and Indonesia have same background, but we do have a one big difference. The difference in terms of number of population. So if let's say we say a portion of Indonesia population is wealthy enough, and they use Bitcoin, it's already very huge number of people. And as well as in Indonesia, actually currently we try to initiate one project. We call it is a project Bit Island, to convert one island in Bali to accepting Bitcoin, together with Gary in here and Roberto as well, the NST guy.
What are the obstacles? I'd like Jason, who haven't really touched this too much. What are the obstacles in your opinion in the adoption? And how to overcome them?
In Australia, it's difficult to get Bitcoin. So that's probably what I was talking about before. The spontaneous. I just want to go and get $10 or $20 worth of Bitcoins. I just want to try it. That's one of the big adoptions. The other one, people just don't care. At this point in time, people don't care because they've got the fiat system, and that works well enough for them. And there's a general lot of apathy, but these are the unwashed masses who haven't been educated yet. And once we educate them, they will come along.
Tries to break through in the mobile, and if we're talking brick and mortar adoption, we're talking mobile. I mean, these things happen through mobile phones. Is there any way we can expect? Is there any secret project that you will reveal here that might help Bitcoin in Microsoft Mobile world?
Yeah. So one thing that I can say is that I am leading the mobile payments efforts internally. So we are also driving some incubation. So we do see connection between mobile payments, Bitcoins, and all the disruptive technologies. Right? We all have interest to use technology to make the world better. So I don't have anything secret to share. But one thing that I can say is that I think I'm echoing Jason's point, is that, for example, I am based in Redmond, based in Seattle. In the US, even mobile payments has a very hard time getting adoption, right? So because everyone would say, especially all the people in the US would say, hey, credit cards work so well, you're finding a problem the problem doesn't exist.
Cough, Home Depot.
That the value proposition of what we are trying to do for merchants, what do you think it is? One of the examples I use, or one of the advantages I use, using coin of sale and using some good Bitcoin wallet. The Bitcoin transaction in the store with the merchant who is used to do this, who does this at least a couple of times a week, is quicker than the credit card or cash. It is. I mean, some people say it is. I measured it. It's quicker. The only thing that is quicker is tap and pay, but that's quite expensive, and not that many merchants can actually afford it. What else do you see as a advantage value proposition for merchants?
No chargebacks. Yeah. I always talk about that. It's cheaper. If the sticker price for Visa and credit cards is between 2.5%, 3%, 4% or whatever. Our sticker price is 1%, so it's cheaper. It's more secure. The merchants are not subject to clawback or chargebacks. In fact, that works in brick and mortar stores as well. One of our merchants gave me a story of he had a customer that put a credit card on the bar and run up a big tab of several $100s, and then at the end of the night just walked away. and then reported his card lost or stolen, and the merchant's not allowed to go after them and say, hey, here's my baseball bat and I want it to meet your needs. They're not allowed to do that. So he was out several $100s from that particular transaction.
It depends on the merchant you are looking also. If it's a brick and mortar merchant, definitely the fee is the main criteria which you can convince him. Second is the education, that is not a difficult thing. And if you're talking about the online merchants, fraud is the most important thing.
Because what these guys are talking about is the first world problems, credit cards. But what about the poor places where there are no credit cards? What is there for merchant?
Exactly. Like in the Philippines, we only have 3% of the population who have actual credit cards. So, in fact, one of the hindrances of usage of Bitcoin in the Philippines is that people don't actually understand what digital payments in general is. It's not about just what Bitcoin is, it's also about what credit cards are, what holding money in digital form is. People don't really understand that. So, but what you said, people, like our merchants right now can accept Bitcoin easily, and it's free for us, and the fees are a lot lower than credit cards, and it's just, it's the first step in adoption in the Philippines, because we set up the infrastructure for people to be able to pay, and then the next stage, maybe looking at the consumer side.
Second thing is about education for people in Indonesia especially, because Bitcoiners always try to explain what is Bitcoin about and how good is the technology and how wonderful it can change the system, but people actually just don't care. They just want to know how to accept it. But when we get that question, we always explain the whole story of Bitcoin, and it just make them to think, oh, it's not for me then. Yeah.
Okay, well, one thing that I've been bragging about for a very, very long time, what I believe will be the tipping point when the Bitcoin will become successful as a medium of exchanges. I think the vertical integration, meaning not only I can pay my coffee in the cafe with Bitcoin, but that cafe can pay whatever the coffee beans are for the cake or rent in Bitcoin, and then the whole circle starts closing. I would ask if you have any experience with that happening in where you guys are based, and I know the answer will be no, so it doesn't even make sense to ask it now. So I'd like to ask anyone, and not even brick and mortar, do you know about a single case where this is already happening, whether brick and mortar or online payments that you can point out to, which would mean this thing?
I know one place.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's Bali Island.
Okay.
In Bali, you can use Bitcoin for anything: hotel, taxi, even buying vegetable, and even.
Okay, but can that hotel pay, whatever its suppliers with Bitcoin? That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Sorry again.
If that hotel or the restaurant can pay its suppliers with Bitcoin, that is the important step I think we're missing.
Depending on the hotel, if let's say the hotel is order the vegetable from the supplier that accepting Bitcoin.
Is it happening?
Then yes.
That's my question. Is it happening?
Yeah, but for the small hostel, for that one.
Is it happening as we speak? Like if I go to a hotel and I pay with Bitcoin, will that hotel pay its supplier in
no,
Bitcoin?
The closed ecosystem.
Does anyone know about any example like this? Is this happening?
Well, I have one. We took Bitcoin for our exhibitors at the Texas Bitcoin Conference last year, and we got our conference organizer to accept Bitcoin.